call on this bill in the second reading and committee stage. Sorry, Mr Chair. Mr Chair, I think it's really important just to put it into perspective, and before I get into the gist of this, I do want to just reflect a little bit on National's past record on employees' rights, and I mean it really has been all about, for them, more about employers' rights as opposed to employees' rights, but let's look at their record on employees' rights. So the unfortunate reality is that far too many of the ministers in the current government sitting on that side of the House are 90s, Mr Chair, and we do need to remember that. We need to remember that that school of thought we're taught that employees' rights should be secondary to business profits. And we on this side of the House are not anti-business, but we think that it's important to support business whilst ensuring that employees have their rights protected. But the reality is that that side doesn't believe the same thing. Now, National, as everyone in this House would know, even those from National, have an absolute shocking record, Mr Chair, on employees' rights. But it's tried to put on a smiley face. It did try and put on a smiley face at the 2008 election and pretend that things were going to be different from last time, and that things wouldn't change much with regards to what Labor had put into place when we were there. Now, what I want to touch on with regards to this bill, in particular, Mr Chair, is the stopping of what that side of the House has tried to say with regards to stopping the sickie. Now, it is incredibly insulting. It is incredibly insulting because what that side of the House has implied the whole way along with regards to the rhetoric that they put out there is that New Zealanders are basically ripping off the system. New Zealanders are lazy, New Zealanders are lying to their bosses, and New Zealanders are taking every opportunity to stay home when they're not sick and waste not only their employers' time but take advantage of their positions. And it's a horrible way to think. It's a petty way to think. And it's a terrible foundation in which a government builds a relationship with the public, Mr Chair, when that is the assumption that they're making about workers that are out there. Now, the idea that after one day, or by taking 1 day off sick, that an employee would be expected to visit a doctor and get a doctor's certificate is just absolutely ridiculous, Mr Chair. Now, all of us know that since that side has been at the reins and since 2008 when they won that election, the medical bills have gone up. And yet now we're going to put more costs on to the average working person by saying that if they decide to just take 1 day off sick, that they will have to visit the doctors and they'll have to fork out for that themselves, Mr Chair. Now, we on this side of the House think it's an unrealistic and an unfair expectation of the ordinary Kiwi who isn't lazy, who does work hard, and when they say they are sick, they are genuinely sick and should be supported by their employees to take that time off, to their employers to take that time off and stay home. Now, my colleague that just spoke before me, Mr Prasad, brought up the fact that what this government's policy, their employment policy, shows is that they are, unfortunately, but in all reality, anti-family. Now, when you look at the provisions that are in place with regards to sick leave, that's another area in which it proves that the National Party is anti-family. Now, 1 day off, go to the doctors, get a medical certificate, employee. That cost of of going to the doctors is money that is taken away from that adult's ability to be able to look after their children. That 1 day that they need to take off sick, that they may not be able to afford to, and so therefore they continue on at work, and if there need be, who suffers from that? The children, when they have parents that can't spend time with them because in the long term they're much sicker than what they should have been because they didn't take the time off when they needed to. That side of the House makes no sense with regards to the decisions that they make, Mr Chair. Mr Chair.
I'll call Carol Beaumont.
Thank you very much.